our viewers. My name is Lucien Jeffrey. I am live on LinkedIn and I'm also recording for the Entrepreneur TV. So we are welcoming you because I have an important guest that I want you to get to know about. But before we do that, I would like to let you know that this show is sponsored by the Entrepreneur Nation, and the Entrepreneur Nation is a business development group. It's a business referral group. It's a business networking group where we bring entrepreneurs and business professionals together so they can refer clients to each other. We've been doing this for almost 5 years, and we've been hosting this TV show for almost 4 years. So, really great to have you. And today, my guest is none other than Karen Hulan. She'll tell us exactly how the last name is pronounced. She's the past president of Middlesex Law Association, and she's a personal injury lawyer. As soon as I turn the screen, we'll have Karen here, and there's some important information that I want her to share with us and our viewers. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Lucy. It's nice to see you.
We are so happy to have you. And you know what? You've always helped me to pronounce your last name, but guess what? I keep making mistakes. So please help our viewers today to pronounce it.
You did very well. There's a nice feature on LinkedIn that I've taken advantage of where you can click on their microphone and hear what a person's name, how their last name is pronounced.
Yes.
And my last name is Hulan. So it's a silent H, a long U.
Hulan. Awesome. So our viewers, we have Karen Hulan, personal injury lawyer, past president of Middlesex Law Association, and there's something else. There's another leadership position she wants to go for, so we'll talk about that. But Karen, what I always say is people do business with the people they know, like, and trust. I believe that even the lawyers that you're going to speak to have to like you and trust your knowledge and what you're going to do for them. So I like asking my guests to start by, telling us who they are, where they came from before you became a lawyer, so we can get to know you.
Sure, thank you. Well, the people who know me in London tend to know me as a personal injury lawyer. I've been living in London since 2006. I've been a personal injury lawyer for 20 years, but I'm originally from Newfoundland. I moved here in 1996. I taught high school in Ontario and in Newfoundland, and then decided to go back to law school in 1999 and worked in Toronto for a few years after graduating from Queen's Law. And then my family and I moved to London and have been practicing here ever since. So I've practiced in a small firm environment, exclusively in personal injury.
Awesome, great, congratulations. I've never been to Newfoundland. Maybe one day when you're going there, you might jump in the car and go with you, or airplane or whatever. But I am really happy to know that you are a former high school teacher. I'm actually a former high school teacher, and that's how we connected, because we have some history there. So then you decided to become a lawyer. That's great. Changing career, that's great. So I would like to highlight you as a personal injury lawyer first and foremost, because that's what you do. And before we talk about what everyone is talking about on social media. So tell us then, I noticed that you offer different services within personal injury. You help different clients within personal injury. Can you take us through what services that you offer and who are your potential clients?
So I practice at what we call a boutique law firm in London. So a boutique meaning that we specialize in one area of law. And our area is personal injury. But within that, there are many different ways, unfortunately, that people can become injured. So there is a department within our firm that practices in the area of sexual assault. There are others who represent individuals who've been injured in car accidents, and that's the work that I do quite a bit of. I represent people with their insurance claims, whether or not they've been denied insurance from their own long-term disability policy, or if it's been through a car accident and they're having difficulty with their own insurance company, their own insurance policy. I help people with their CPP disability appeals. And then there's also a number of children who are injured sometimes at schools or daycares or in sporting activities. And then on the other end, there are people who are elderly who are injured in long-term care facilities, and I do represent those individuals and their families as well.
Awesome. Great to know. Thank you for helping people when they didn't need you.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you then, how do clients find you? Like if somebody is looking for you in London, Ontario, when do they find you?
Well, there are different ways of finding a lawyer. I have found that a lot of people are referred to me through colleagues. So lawyers who practice in other areas and do not have expertise in personal injury, they will reach out to me and refer their own clients. So maybe criminal defense lawyers or lawyers who practice in real estate. But then there's also people from the public. And when we do receive calls directly to our office, people see me on social media. I'm fairly engaged. Thank you, Lucy, for helping me quite a bit years ago with that. But I'm fairly engaged on social media, and I have clients have reached out to me that way as well. So it really is from other professionals, but then also just directly from the public.
Wonderful. Great to know. So, yeah, definitely. I know you're very active on social media, and I like that. I like people who are active on social media. So, my question for you then is why would someone who is injured decide to look for a person? There are some people who think that maybe the case is not strong enough to
Right.
go to a personal injury lawyer. Why should someone come to a personal injury lawyer?
Well, for information primarily, and I would say to do that quickly. There is no expense or obligation to reach out to speak with a personal injury lawyer. There are excellent personal injury lawyers all across the province, and many of them are in London. We have great representation here, and our firm is amongst those. I say reach out to us. There are a number of reasons for doing that, but one particular reason is that depending on how you've been injured, there may be very tight timelines for the requirements for giving notice of a potential claim. And if you don't meet those notice requirements, then it can be quite difficult to advance a claim, or you may be barred from doing so. So reach out to a lawyer, get the information, ask for details about what it means to hire a lawyer. I think sometimes people are uncomfortable talking about money when they're meeting with someone they've maybe never encountered working with a lawyer before. If the lawyer should be telling you that information and being very transparent about it. But if they're not, don't be afraid to ask the question. Ask for a copy of the contract. We call it a retainer agreement. So ask for a copy of that. There's also a consumer guide, I guess you could call it, that the Law Society requires us to distribute to potential clients. So I give people who meet with me for free information a copy of this, and I say, take some time, read this over, talk to your family, and let's talk again if you want about what next steps may look like. So there really is no obligation. That second stage, if there is a second meeting, that too should also be free. It certainly is at our office. So really just make sure you're protecting your rights. You understand you're entering sometimes an insurance regime can be quite complicated, particularly if you're involved in a motor vehicle collision. So just get the information. I think it'll help ease some stress when you at least know what you're facing and what you're going to be navigating through.
Wonderful. And you know what, Karen? I appreciate you for that. And I want to jump into your leadership skills,
Sure.
right? From the get go, when I met you, I think in 2018 or
Mhm.
2019, you joined our group and you helped me to form a group of other professionals to refer clients to each other. So I actually noticed your leadership skills from the get go. But again, you know what? Being a former high school teacher and being a lawyer, why not? Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I saw that you became the president of Middlesex Law Association. I know that you're also editing their newsletter. You've done a lot for that association. So right now, I would like you to speak to our viewers about your engagement with the Middlesex Law Association and your leadership there.
Sure. Well, thanks, Lucy. I've contributed to the local law association, but I've actually received quite a bit from that as well. I think so. I joined as a member when I first moved to London, and I've been a board trustee, so on the board of governors essentially, for over 10 years. So, including when I was working with you, Lucy. I've met an incredible amount of talented, kind, interesting lawyers through this association. So that's been what I've received from it. But in terms of my involvement, I am currently the past president. So I still have a role on the executive, and that will last until next February. I was the president from November of 21 until February of this year. And then prior to that was the vice president, the treasurer the year before, assistant treasurer. But during that time and going back over 10 years, I've served on every committee, some of them for a couple of years. So for instance, you mentioned the newsletter. So that involved reaching out to lawyers in the area and asking if they had articles of interest to distribute in our monthly newsletter. So that got me engaged with lawyers in the community, and I really enjoyed that. I was bench and bar chair. So bench and bar essentially means your role is acting as a liaison between judges and lawyers. So putting together meetings for those two, as well as what else? Mentoring. So matching junior lawyers and senior lawyers in our area, working on continuing professional development courses and programs, being on the law committee. And I think my favorite of all, truly, was being involved in the entertainment committee. So being the chair of organizing dinners, roasts, golf tournaments. That's actually just pure fun and really the nicest way to meet some of your colleagues in London.
Wonderful, Kellen. That's great. So then so many lawyers know you. Awesome, great. So I also noticed, again, just following your leadership journey here, I want our viewers to see the leadership journey before we talk about the big things that are coming.
Sure.
So you are also part of the Trial Lawyers Association. So tell us about that association and what is your involvement in it?
Sure. So I am a member. I don't have a leadership role at the Ontario Trial Lawyers Association, although I've had membership in that group for pretty much my entire career. It is a nonprofit organization, association of lawyers who represent individuals. So primarily it's made up of personal injury lawyers throughout Ontario, but some lawyers do practice in other areas as well, for instance, employment law. So, but the key being that we represent individuals and not companies, or including insurance companies. The other role of the Ontario Trial Lawyers Association and the important work that group does, and they have really great leadership, is advocating at the government level for change and making sure that the rights and interests of injured people are protected. So in terms of my contribution, I've tried to contribute to those goals of that association. I have written papers for distribution amongst that membership. I have presented as well, and then also been a part of their lobbying efforts at the provincial government level to see what steps can be taken and to actually suggest steps that can be taken to ease the loads on our courthouses and the backlog of litigation that we have, as well as advocating for changes to legislation that make it more difficult for people who are injured in car accidents to receive compensation.
Wonderful. Great to know. Great to know, Karen. You spend a lot of time serving others, and really that's what I love. I resonate with that a lot. But I want to tell you that the reason why I called you and reached out to you to bring you to my viewers here on LinkedIn and on TV, it's because I saw you vying for a leadership position at the Law Society of Ontario. And I want to read a disclaimer here. I want to actually read it, that although we are not lawyers and do not endorse any candidate, there is nothing wrong with us understanding so we can give you moral support. So we are not endorsing you as a candidate from the public because we are not lawyers. We are not entitled to vote, but there is nothing wrong with the public understanding what you are up to and what are these positions so we know what's going on. So I want you to tell our viewers why you are running for the bencher position. And I actually, before you say why you are running, I want to know why it's called bencher. Why?
Sure,
Why
I
not
will.
board of directors? Why not board of directors? So please tell us why bencher first and then why you are running.
So even before that, I'm going to explain a little bit about the Law Society, if I could.
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks. Because I think it is important for the public to understand. The Law Society is the regulatory body for lawyers and paralegals in Ontario. And the mandate or the responsibility of the Law Society is to ensure that the public is receiving, well, many responsibilities, but one of the primary ones is making sure that the public is receiving honest and competent legal representation. So it is a regulatory body focused on the public. In terms of kind of the makeup of it, we have every 4 years there's an election, and there are 40 lawyers who are elected by lawyers in Ontario. So 20 of those lawyers are elected from within the city of Toronto, and 20 are elected from outside of Toronto. And we also have 5 paralegal positions. So paralegal professionals within Ontario are also regulated by this body, and paralegals can vote for 5 paralegal candidates across the province. So now we're at 45 benchers, and I'm going to get to the definition in a moment. But there's also 8 more. We call them lay benchers, so people who are not lawyers or paralegals, and those individuals are appointed by the provincial government. So in total, the Law Society is comprised of 53 benchers. What is a bencher? A bencher it's essentially like a director or a governor or a trustee. So your point is well taken. If we were using more modern language, Lucy, those are probably the terms we would adopt. But the word bencher really goes back. It's a very old term. It was used in Britain. And our Law Society in Ontario was organized in 1797. So we only made our name change in 2018. From 1797 until 2018, we were the Law Society of Upper Canada, a very historical name. We modernized that in 2018 to become the Law Society of Ontario. But the word bencher has remained. There are a couple of other terms as well that are a little different, perhaps, for people on the outside looking in. All of our benchers meet at convocation, which is essentially a board meeting. And our president is not called a president or a chairperson, but rather we call that person a treasurer. So that's the head of convocation.
Awesome. I totally understand that, but I hope that while you are there, you'll lobby to change the name. I don't know, but yeah, I want lawyers not to become benchers, but to become board of directors or something. I don't know. But thank you for explaining that history. And now we know. So then the next question was that why did you decide? I know you've really shown our viewers your leadership journey, but when did you decide to go for that? I know you are busy enough. Why did you decide to go for that, Karen?
Well, to the lawyers who may be listening or the paralegals who may be listening, my reason was really precipitated by a budget cut that happened a few years ago while I was the treasurer of the Middlesex Law Association. So the Law Society has a significant budget, and a decision was made to cut substantial funding to our courthouse libraries. And we also call them our practice resource centers because they're not just traditional libraries. They are certainly that, and that's very important. But they tend to be the center of legal activity in communities, particularly, I think, outside of Toronto. It's very much a hub of our legal community here. So, and the hub and the center of our Middlesex Law Association. So that was really what got me started in looking at convocation. And then the more that I observed, the more that I learned about what was happening at that level, I decided I have a contribution to make here. I think that my experience at the association level over the years is an important sort of offers a certain viewpoint that needs to be heard. I'm also a personal injury lawyer. I represent average individuals like me. And I represent small firms. So there are a lot of lawyers in Ontario who practice either on their own or in small firms. The Law Society should be comprised of people who practice in all areas. So that was really kind of the impetus for me getting involved. But in terms of the things that I think there are a number of issues that I think that need to be addressed at the Law Society, but there are a few that are of particular importance to me. And I start from the point of, well, what is the Law Society versus what is it not? It is not a lawyers advocacy group. It is not a paralegals advocacy group. We regulate our profession in the interest of the public. And so I think that can be best accomplished, however, by supporting paralegals and lawyers. So programming about continuing professional development or education. practice management supports that we need, because when we are well situated, we are more likely to provide excellent service to the public. Going forward, there are issues, I think, that really do need attention, one of which is technology. So law is no different than many other professions and industries and entrepreneurs. We're all dealing with a very rapidly changing technological landscape. And the question in the legal profession is, how are we going to adjust to this? What sort of software might we regulate? How can we better incorporate technology into our practices? And if that is the expectation, then what role can the Law Society have in assisting legal professionals in making that transition? So technology is an important one. Another issue I think is very important, has been discussed for a long time, is the kind of the transitional year that students are making. So they graduate from law school, but there is a gap before they become a lawyer and get called to the bar and become a lawyer. So traditionally, we had a program, and it still exists, it's called articling. So it essentially is an internship. But the problem with we have found with that is that not everybody is successful in being able to secure a articling position. So there are a number of people who are quite talented, they're educated, and they've gone through law school, they're ready to become lawyers, they've passed their bar exams, but they cannot secure a position. So there have been other programs that have been designed more recently, and I think we need some data to look at how those programs are, the successes and perhaps failures. And I really think that this whole piece about the transition from law school to practice really we need some decisions made there. And then there are several, but I'll touch on one last issue that I think really does need attention, and that is legal aid funding. So the Law Society has a role in advocating both at the provincial government and federal government level to ensure that we have a healthy legal aid system. So there are many people in Ontario who cannot afford to hire a lawyer, or they can't afford to hire a paralegal, or the area that they need representation in, the paralegal is not permitted to practice in. So they end up trying to navigate a legal system on their own. And you can appreciate that lawyers and paralegals, we go to school to be trained for this. We practice in this area. It can be complicated, and we have people who are not only dealing with the legal system for the first time, but at a time it's probably not the best timing in their lives because they're dealing with some sort of conflict or issue. That has really increased the backlog that we have in the court. So people who, despite how much money they earn, ought to have access to excellent legal service. And so to do that, we need a healthy and strong legal aid system. So those are a couple of the issues, or a few of the issues that that are really important to me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for really letting us know why you decided to do this. I actually don't know any bencher. I'm connected to almost 2,000 lawyers. I see some of them written bencher, but I don't know them. So if you ever get voted in, then at least I'll say I know one bencher. And I think I'll add to your bucket list, if you do get in, I see a lot of conflict between lawyers and paralegals. I think the Law Society should try to fix that conflict. I also see a lot of international lawyers struggling to get certified in Canada. There are some things that need to be repealed. As a member of the public, I see that a lot on LinkedIn. So I would like to add that to your bucket list, to look at how paralegals are not happy, and to look at how the international lawyers feel they struggle so much to get licensed here in Canada. But I wanted to ask you, is there one, so the lawyers are going to vote on April 19th. So if you get in, I know that your vote will be only one vote out of all those 50-something people. How will you make the changes?
So I think the key is, certainly we don't know person who is running as a bencher candidate should have a platform, right? We have issues that we may have experience with, or are of particular importance to us. But this is not a political organization. It is not a legislature or an advocacy group. So I'm not coming to this with an agenda. And I would caution any lawyer or paralegal who's watching, if you are looking at venture candidates, I would be wary of anyone who is approaching with an agenda. I think what is required are skills and the general approach that a venture candidate would take. And the one thing that we all have in common is the approach that we want to take to convocation or to the Law Society. Really, the best approach is to listen, to learn, to work hard, to debate, and then decide. And so I think all issues have to be approached that way. So consultation, when I say listen, I think consultation is a very important part of that. There are lawyers, I talked about legal aid a moment ago. I actually do not work under legal aid certificates, but I know several lawyers who do, and those people are resources to draw upon. There are other associations in Ontario who have expertise in areas that maybe the benchers do not have. So it's important to consult with stakeholders.
Wonderful. Great to know. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. So, as we come towards the end of this conversation, we will not keep our viewers for too long. We're happy that you have made us understand a few things that we didn't know. I want to talk to you about going back to your legal practice. I believe that sometimes you also find your own clients. Maybe the law firm where you work may refer or people may refer, but you also maybe there's an entrepreneurial part of you that I know. And that's why you joined the Entrepreneur Nation to team up with other entrepreneurs and licensed professionals. So, as a member, a past member also of the Entrepreneur Nation, you have kept a very wonderful relationship with us and very positive relationship. So, is there any testimony that you have for us or something to say about the Entrepreneur Nation and the people you met here?
So absolutely, Lucy, it has been a phenomenal opportunity to work with the Entrepreneur Nation. I have met many people in different areas that different occupations that I otherwise would not have met, and several of them have actually become friends. So I was insured, just to give you an example, I was insured by one insurance company for about 30 years. And I met a different insurance agent through the Entrepreneur Nation who then became my insurance agent. There's a home inspector who I met through the Entrepreneur Nation who's become a great resource for me and has been to my home to help me. There's a few lawyers who I have developed relationships with because I met them through your organization. One of them's become a dear friend, a very trusted lawyer, and we do refer work to each other. So, and it's not just coming from other lawyers; it's other people who I've met through the Entrepreneur Nation. You're right. So it's the relationship building. I found it really helpful also because I'm not from London, right? So I don't have that automatic network of people from high school or from undergraduate days like many people do, much like you, Lucy. You came here and you're new to this area. And so joining a group such as the Entrepreneur Nation, and it's really expanded since I was involved, it really does expand your network of people beyond your own profession.
Wonderful. We definitely appreciate you so much. I actually count you as a friend now because of building that relationship. People meet and the relationship goes on, and I appreciate you for keeping in touch. So, as we come to an end of this, Karen, and thank you for your time, do you have any final words for our viewers or for lawyers or for paralegals?
Sure. Thank you. Well, if there's anyone from the public who's not a lawyer or a paralegal watching, then I would say if you don't know a lawyer, just reach out to somebody who you feel comfortable with. If you've seen them on social media, or don't hesitate to make a call. I frequently receive calls from people. They may be parents of my kids' friends, my kids' friends. They reach out to me because they need a family lawyer. Well, clearly I don't practice family law, or they might need a real estate lawyer. So if you don't know lawyers, don't hesitate. Just call somebody you do recognize or you feel that you could trust. I often put people in touch with other lawyers. I give them 2 or 3 names so that they can feel comfortable at making the call themselves. So don't hesitate to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate you so much for that. So, our viewers, both on LinkedIn, we thank you so much for your time. And our viewers on TV, we thank you so much for your time. So,